Hiya, welcome to our Positive and Productive Tactical meeting. And let's start with our usual check-in. Emily, can you share our feelings check-in, please?
Yes, of course.
Who'd like to go first?
I'll go first.
Thanks, Helen.
I'm feeling curious and appreciative.
Great stuff. Ben, are you okay to go next?
Yes, I am feeling comfortable and open.
Emily?
I'm feeling a bit lethargic, but excited on the other hand as well.
And I'm feeling absorbed. Thank you for that. In terms of feeling lethargic, Emily, is there anything that we can do to help you be present today?
No, just don't expect me to move quickly.
Okay, duly noted. Let's have a minute of mindfulness.
Okay.
Can you do your timer, please, Emily?
Sure. I've got the Giphy as well that I can share.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you for that, Emily. Let's move into our checklist review. Ben, can you share the Trello board, please?
I can, yes. There we go. So I'll read through from the top. Michelle, update wellbeing leader handbook with checklist and timeline.
No check.
Michelle to share wellbeing team decision-making flow chart with Camden to see what needs to adapt to roll out to teams.
No check.
Create decision-making scope for the team.
No check.
Michelle to work with Helen on the wellbeing handbook.
No check.
Ben to keep what ifs up to date and add areas for further learning ongoing. Ask for feedback each week.
Check.
Check. Michelle and Ben to meet and develop practice-based scenarios on leaders' what if questions doing. Develop progress for assistants.
No check.
All to complete updating CP so that they reflect roles on Glass Frog.
Doing.
No check. So can we leave it there? We'll leave it there. Look at roles for Camden and go through competencies and scores and guidance for not hitting targets. Michelle.
Okay.
Emily to develop plan for developing team agreements ongoing. Michelle to look at pulling together a plan around the management of Facebook page and managing risk.
No check.
Michelle and Ben to share any updated versions of sprint resources, agenda and slides. No check.
No check.
Helen to continue to raise armoured leadership tactical meetings.
Can we move that to done because we turned it into an action last week?
Yeah. Michelle and Ben to add annual sequence to Camden Wellbeing Leader Handbook.
Check.
Check. Ben to look at monthly themes for Camden to include Team 15s. No check. Michelle to look at metrics for Camden and identify which reflect what we want to measure at tactical each week.
No check.
Emily to share the Team 15s being developed for Mary Beth. You're on mute, Em, at the minute.
No check. Loudly.
Michelle will look at dates for Ireland and Flintshire and let Helen know what can be combined.
Check.
Check. Everyone to complete the spreadsheet that Emily has created for the CC session dates before Tuesday, 16th of March.
Check.
Check.
No check.
No check. Emily to work with coaches to populate organisational armoured leadership versus daring leadership.
No check. Oh no, doing, that one is. That's a doing. Yeah.
Over there. Everyone to add pronouns to email signature.
No check.
No check.
There's one above, Ben, there's one above.
Oh, sorry. Ben and Michelle to look at information where shame shows up in organisations and the 4 films Dare to Lead.
Doing.
Emily to draft welcoming statement about using pronouns and being kind when if getting it wrong.
No check.
Ben and Emily to schedule days for potential further Wales work, September onwards, keeping space on set days.
No.
No check. Michelle to get a quote from Claire in relation to what attracted her to the wellbeing leader role.
No check.
And Michelle will have a go at the progress for meetings doc.
Doing.
That concludes the checklist.
Brilliant, thank you. So we don't have metrics to review as of yet because I haven't put the ones on from Camden. So let's go into project updates, and can I check on any project updates that have happened since we last met together? So who'd like to go first? Helen, thank you.
So these are things that have been organised since we last spoke that relate to my role of communications. So I'm doing a set of 3 sessions with Andy Brogan talking about updates on confirmation practices, and we're doing it with Lisa Gill. So that feels really exciting. I've been invited to speak in Australia at an NDIS safeguarding event, and I think it's really interesting that we're asked about safeguarding. So I'll be talking about relationship-based focused there. We've finished the Dare to Lead, and we're starting to explore Brené's new work on daring teams and what that might mean. And I'm working with Mary Beth and Emily on the Trust and Autonomy course, and that requires a really significant development of resources, which is very exciting, so that I'm talking to Mary Beth about us paying for the design of them so that we can integrate them into all of our work. So that's great. And I did a podcast this morning with Camden, and one of the podcasts was explicitly about recruitment, and I wanted to tell you so that you could use it in the recruitment work that you're doing in Wales. And she finished with a statement that said, based on seeing the recruitment workshops, she'd never want to go back to ordinary interviews. So that was really, really powerful. And we came out in a book chapter this week, and I'll get it and wave it at you later on. And it's by Alan, who's one of the leading people who works on values. So it's a mainstream book, and there's a chapter on wellbeing teams in terms of how we apply our values to our work.
Thank you. Ben, anything in your projects?
Yeah, well, an update from a meeting that Emily and I had with folk in the Northeast on Monday, and it was in relation to a big program, outcomes and support sequence program, and working with young people at risk of or who are in long stay hospital. So it felt really exciting to talk about what we might be able to achieve across Northeast and North Yorkshire. So that was really good. And also sent out some proposals for work in West Hampshire around personalised care and support planning in combination with Helen. So we've sent a couple of some information down there about outcomes and support sequence work with them as well.
Thanks, Ben. Emily?
Nothing new to report about my project since last week.
And I have nothing new to report on mine either since last week. Oh, I have a money thing to report. I do actually. So the early payment that I requested has been agreed and will happen after the financial year end. Great stuff. So let's build our agenda and put our attentions into chat, and then we will work through those as usual. Great. So I'm going to work through the list and see if we can get what you need. So Helen, coaching card feedback, what do you need? You're on mute, Helen.
Right, when we do that, we're being recorded, isn't it? I need to share some information with Emily, please. So the information I want to share is, Emily, I plan to review your coaching cards this week, but I had to prioritise some other things, and it's on my list for Tuesday, and I'll have feedback for you by the end of Tuesday. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get what you need?
I did, thank you.
Next on me, buddying and shame. So Claire, so what I need is to give you a little bit of background and then ask for your ideas. So in Camden, we were talking about buddying people up, and Claire, who's just done the Dare to Lead course, got me thinking about shame when we were thinking about probation boards and how do we do that without people experiencing a sense of shame. But it also made me think then about buddying up, and Ben and I were talking about how to help people buddy up in a virtual on Zoom without people feeling like the last person to be picked for a game around us. And there were a couple of things that we bandied about, like it's their decision. It's one of the first decisions team members make. So that feels really important. However, we could take the shame away and let Zoom choose the pairs as well. So, but it was getting some kind of thoughts on that, and I'd like to do that in a round. So how can we support people to choose their buddy pairs without triggering shame? So yeah, none of you have come off mute, so I think I'm assuming you're thinking hard. Helen, you were the first off mute. Do you want to start us off?
I think we need to answer that question in the context of purpose and look at the purpose of buddies. And the purpose of buddies is support and challenge. And therefore, your relationship with your buddy is really important. So the advantage of doing it randomly is, as you say, you avoid the I'm not chosen, which can feel really difficult for people, myself included. What we lose by doing that is people directly asking somebody with whom they've formed a connection. And where it is in the induction is it's after you've done the histories. So that gives you an opportunity to get really great insight into people and know them well in order to make an informed decision. So part of me thinks if we've done recruitment, value-based recruitment as well as we possibly can, we should get people whose values would be aligned, and it would be a great thing for diversity just to randomly select people and let Zoom randomly select people. And if we're still doing the 42 questions, that's an opportunity to get to know people more. But there's also part of me in my stomach that says, oh, it's such an important role. Is it okay just to leave it to chance? So I think where I'm left is part of what we do is do experiments. So I wonder whether we do this as an experiment and say, we'll test it out this time. And then we'll ask the team 6 months on whether they would have preferred to choose people, or whether if they choose people the next time after they've had 6 months experience of budding, they're in a better place to do that. And then ask the team, because the other possibility is asking the team, saying, how can we do this in a way that doesn't make people feel left out? So it wouldn't be our decision, but we raise it as an attention with the team and say, what we'd like to do now is for you to choose your buddy partner. However, we don't want it to be experienced like a game of netball. So we could either let Zoom do it for you, or let's hear what your solutions are. So that's where I've ended up.
Thanks, Helen. Ben?
Yeah, really good point from Helen. I think asking the team is a great idea, but my initial thoughts on it were in regards to one of the things that we are trying to get people better at in a self-managed team is managing relationships and thinking about how do you support each other, not only as a buddy pair, but also you need to be able to support the whole team and members of the team. So it felt to me like, and I also took into account the fact that people have been part of a recruitment workshop and how they fed back about the positive experience of the feedback session where they were together with somebody else, and we got lots of positive feedback about that, and that was randomized. So I initially thought random pairs would be quite good in that sense. It's likely that people, because they have the same values, that they would get on okay, and that there was an element of managing relationships that would be quite healthy for people to be able to experience that and do that. And that it would be, and it just in terms of logistically in an induction session in Zoom, it would be quite an easier thing to do in that sense. But I think asking the team about it and having the team being able to review how it worked and maybe think about changing those buddies after 6 months, or how that might happen in a different way, is a great call, and getting the team to think about that themselves. Having experienced it one way, would it be different again the next time around?
Emily?
I think there's a lot to be said actually for not choosing somebody who you feel pally with, because I think this is a role not just about supporting one another, but challenge as well. And I think sometimes that's easier for people if they don't know each other initially so well, would be my initial thought. So you might, and I'm not suggesting we would get this with people we've recruited, but you could potentially get sort of collusion, and somebody not saying yes, you're doing, somebody saying yes, you're doing a great job, and not necessarily challenging in the way that we would want. However, I think that the option of getting people to decide how they want to do that, and I think naming and being very honest about this could feel like people don't belong and feel left out, and so we want to make sure that doesn't happen, or nobody feels like that, so that it's very transparent and open, perhaps.
Thanks. I'll build on those thoughts. I think my experience of choosing has been that it's worked for some people, but for others, they've done the buddy part, the support part, but they haven't really leaned into the challenge part very well. So I really like the idea of choosing and having two options to choose from. So choose somebody who you think will challenge you as well as support you, or or we'll randomly do it and then review. But I like the idea of not taking all the choice away, or all the decision away. And then if they choose to choose, it's figuring out how the best way to do that, given that it's in a situation like this. Thank you. I have what I need. Emily, dates CC session.
No, you know what this is going to be about. So this is just to, I want to be able to email Sarah by, well, pretty early next week to confirm dates with her. So I'm just asking, when might you be able to fill in the groovy spreadsheet that I created?
I will do it after this meeting, Emily. Is it in an email to me?
It's not, but I'll put the link in Slack to you, so it's
thank
easily
you.
found.
Did you get what you need?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Apologies for that. Helen, using confirmation practices at the end of meetings, what do you need?
We agreed a couple of meetings ago that we'd test out Andy Brogan's use of confirmation practice at the end of meetings, and we adapted it to fit with tactical. I think we agreed, Emily, that you were going to put them into a Zoom poll. So what I'd like is to agree a date that we're going to start using them. My assumption is we're not having tactical next week because it's a bank holiday. So what I'd like is for us to agree that on the 9th of April, our next tactical, that we will use the confirmation practices via Zoom poll. So I need to know whether Emily can do that in time and whether you as a facilitator, in your role of facilitator, Michelle, agrees to that.
Yeah.
I can do it in time. However, I'm on leave on the 9th of April.
I'm also on leave that week.
So can we do 16th?
Yep, 16th. Okay.
Shall we record that as a decision?
Yes, please. So Ben, would you record that as we'll start using the tactical confirmation practices from the 16th of April?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Why not trust session planning, Ben? What do you need?
I just need Michelle to make you aware that because I'm on leave the second week of Easter, the extended session 7 is that Monday, the Monday after that week. So could we get together to think about that session before I go on leave? If that's okay.
Do you want to get time after this meeting?
Let's do. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Got what I need.
Right. Emily, OSS graphics, what do you need?
I need to know if we have the graphics of the outcome sequence and the support sequence separate from the workbook, but in the really good quality from the designer. And if so, where can I find them?
Yes, we do. And they're in a folder in the drive. I'll send you the link.
Thank you, Ben. I've got what I need.
Great stuff. Tidy up Trello, Helen. What do you need?
When Ben was sharing our Trello, I noticed we've still got a list that says Wellbeing Teams Facebook. So what I'd like to do is request to Ben, in his role of managing our Trello board and reporting on it, to delete that column.
Done.
Great, thank you.
Got what you need?
I have, thank you.
Oh, I was looking at mine then thinking, what? So mine is Camden team agreements together. So what I need, again, is your advice on Camden. So we were recruiting 17 people together. They've been recruited together. However, they're not going to start together now. And they're going to start in 2 waves. And they are going to be 2 teams. I might be answering this question, this tension, as I'm talking about it. So they're going to be starting in 2 ways, but one of the things to do is to build team agreements with that team during induction. And I'm trying to figure out whether it's better to have one set of team agreements that's universal, that the second wave add to, or to create 2 lots and merge them. So I would like your ideas on that.
I don't think it's ideas. I think it's principle. Our principle is every team has their own team agreements. So if they're two separate, so I think the decision for you is whether they feel like two separate teams or whether they're one team that starts in two waves.
Yeah, so there will be two separate teams, but not necessarily the two waves of separate teams. So there will be two teams because there are 17 people, so more than the 12, that's an ideal number. But whether the configuration of that team starts, some of them might start, team 1, team 2, might start in the first wave and then also in the second wave, because we need a mixture of people who work nights, people who are going to be working evenings, and people who work in days. So it feels like a whole team. And that might not happen in the recruitment start wave. And that's the tricky bit. I should have explained that more clearly.
So I think the tension is that not having full information, because I think you need to have full information about whether you are actually creating two teams to make this decision or not. So that's so. Do you want to do it hypothetically? Or,
yeah.
So that there would just be one team. Is that what you mean?
No. I mean, there are 17 people, so that's two teams, because that's too big for us, for good decision making in a self-managing team. So there are always going to be two teams, but those two teams might not be going through induction at the same time.
Okay, so I think the principle is the same. If they're two teams, I think they've got to be two sets of team agreements, because our principle is each team co-creates its own team agreements. So I think it hinges on, if they really are two teams, then there isn't another option other than to have two sets of team agreements.
Because they will have two team meetings.
Yeah. So that's my contribution.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
My only concern with that is that they would both be contributing to the same team's workspace. Is that right? So there might be agreements about how that happens that I'm just thinking about. They'll be contributing in the same team's workspace unless we create two separate teams' workspaces.
Yeah.
So two separate teams. We could do that. I was just thinking about that. That might mean that some of the agreements need to reflect what they're agreeing about connecting and communicating.
Emily?
I've got nothing additional to add.
Okay, thanks. I think I've got what I need. Films for induction.
I rashly volunteered to do some films to support you in induction, and was a bit surprised to get the very long list from Ben, and then even more surprised to have more added. And I can't make a decision about how and when to do them without knowing a deadline. So what I need is to know what your deadline is, and what I also need is to know whether I've got permission to put a couple together, or because there's one on shame shields, which I don't think is the strongest thing from the work with Brené. So my natural inclination would say I'm not sure how you'd be using that in induction, but the design of induction isn't my role, and I volunteered to do this. So what I need is to know what a deadline is, and to know who I need to talk to if I want to offer some advice about whether I think that's useful to do or not in my role as leading the Brené Brown work.
Right, yeah. So the deadline would be the middle of April. And so a little bit of information. The reason we've got shame shields in is because we said it would be an experiment that we committed to from Brené Brown. So that's the reason we've put it in. However, what feels more relevant is to know where shame shows up in how you feel and experience shame, and to see if there's anything about that then that would be related to your one-page profile. So we actually thought mixing them together would be a really helpful thing, but we were a bit worried about diluting some of Brené's stuff as well.
So that generating another issue for me is I don't feel like I can do them without the context, because I would want to say in the film, and you'll use this to contribute to your one-page profile. So how can I get that information? And also, when you say the middle of April, do you mean Monday the 19th of April, or do you mean Friday the 23rd? So what would be helpful for me is actually to have a date that you need them by, and to have a document that puts it in context, which might just be your induction programme.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, now I've said 19th, I'm a bit worried. What if they start people a bit quicker than they've told us? So it's probably the week before. So looking at a date for the week before. I think by the 15th.
Okay, so I think it's at least a day's work.
Yeah.
And I need to look at what's possible. And now I need to, well, actually what would be really helpful is if one of you two could do bullet points of what to cover for each film, and then I don't need to go back to the context myself. So it's a bit like for one, it's like, what are the 4 key things that you want me to cover, and what people will be doing with it next, i.e. you'll be adding this to your one-page profile, or this will inform your future focus, or this will lead to your team agreements, because where you have it in the induction also matters. So thank you very much. I've got what I need in terms of the date, but could somebody commit to getting me that information by the 12th of April?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Oh,
Record that as actions, Ben.
I will, yeah.
Thanks, Helen.
I could feel my anxiety raising as I was talking about it, thinking, oh shit, that's much sooner than I thought. And
when I was sending you the email, I was saying to Michelle, and adding the one today, I was thinking, Helen won't be expecting this list.
Let's pull it back to the agenda now then. So did you manage to capture that, Ben?
Can I just check what was recorded, please? Thank you.
I'm doing it now. So Ben, to share information about what is required.
Well, it's more than that, Ben. It's 4 bullet points, so 3 to 5 bullet points per film, and where it fits in the programme, i.e. link it to one-page profiles or link it to future focus. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are you ready for the next one, Ben?
Nearly.
Yeah.
Induction, yes. And the other card is, what would you like recording about the films, Helen, just in terms of the deadline?
Yeah, just the deadline, 15th, yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Ben? Flint's P4P planning, what do you need?
Again, Michelle, it's just another request to catch up in regards to the next session for Flint, which is next week. So just again, if we could catch up about that after this meeting, that would be really useful.
Great stuff.
Okay,
We can
thank
do
you.
that.
Right.
Did you get what you need?
Yes, thank you.
Me, comms plan for Facebook. What I need is, I think this is a request from Helen to Helen. Do we have an example of a comms plan for Facebook from any of the other places that we've developed that, so that I can hand over to Camden what we think is a great idea for communicating link to purpose with Facebook, and they're actually asking for that now, which is great.
Brilliant. Kath will have that information. So Kath did the storytelling guide for Facebook and the Facebook guidelines. So go to Kath.
Brilliant. Ben, could you record that for me, please, to ask Kath for the storytelling guide and the guide for Facebook? Got what I need, thank you. Ben? Northumberland break, what do you need?
What I need is just to hear from you about the accommodation that I posted in Slack and whether you would like me to book it or not. So just a bit of context, when I've been looking at options, they are much more limited than normal because of people wanting to book stuff. And prices have risen as well. So that was the best option that I could find in relation to area and price and cost and things. So just to hear back from you about whether you want me to go ahead with that booking or not.
It looked really nice. And it's a base, isn't it? It's a base. And then we travel out and see the beautiful countryside.
Yeah.
Yes, from me.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Ben, I'm still struggling to get onto Slack as much as I know I could do. So I'm sure it's a yes from me, and I'm happy for you to pay a deposit and sort everything out after that.
Brilliant. Thank you. I shall book it.
Great stuff. Good.
Thank you.
Get what you need?
Yes, thanks.
Lovely. me facilitating in pairs. So what I need is to confess. So last week we talked, Helen, you raised about when we've agreed that we facilitate in pairs. And I said, well, that's a wellbeing teams thing, but it's not necessarily an HSA thing. However, what I've realised is if I think there's nobody available to work with me, I'm just putting in quotes to work because I've got spaces and need the work as well. And it kind of feels like I'm fudging on an agreement, and I wonder if we need to revisit that agreement so that I don't feel like I'm fudging. So last week really made me think. So if I can tell you what's kind of happening. So it was only when it was HSA stuff coming in, but it's really blended now because the things that I would happen as I would deliver as HSA stuff, I'm saying, but you can't do that without the outcomes and support sequence. It would be really wrong of you to do that. So that's the fudgy bit. And I am putting in quotes for just me doing it for up to 20 people because I feel confident to do that. My preference would be to play with you lot and do it in twos, definitely. So it's not that I'm worried about putting in higher quotes, it's knowing about capacity that's stopping me, but I've stopped even asking because I'm assuming that I know that you can't. So what do I need? So I needed to confess, but I guess what I need is to think about, should our HSA agreement be different to our wellbeing teams agreement, and how do we deal with the blurriness of it when there's so much overlap now?
I've noticed I've gone first for the last couple of rounds, so I'm intentionally going to go last here.
I'll go. I think it's really important to be able to be flexible in terms of requests and be able to think about, what is the request, what's the need, and in terms of delivering quality, what does that need to look like, and in relation to how we deliver that online, and knowing that delivering in pairs for certain sizes of groups works much smoother than being able to do that individually. But I do think it's important to be able to respond in a flexible way, and maybe we need to add something to the decision that we made in relation to that in Trello.
Emily?
I think size of group makes a big difference. So yeah, and kind of anything over 20, it's really hard doing that on your own. I mean, I know from doing it in my other work, and it is really difficult to keep it smooth. So I think there's something about customer experience. I think for smaller groups, it's fairly easy to hold on to manage that. So there's something about quality. And I agree that, so maybe we should write in something. I would think it's potentially related to group size, probably, well, for me. And also being flexible as well to deliver what you can't. It's about confidence to deliver well and good quality, isn't it?
Helen?
I think that decisions we've made recently have blurred the boundaries even more. So for me, it feels like a who invoices issue more than anything else, because I think the content can be, like you say, outcomes and support sequence is probably going across all of the work that we do, regardless of how it's branded. So therefore, I think it's a governance issue, Michelle. I don't think it's a decision that we can make here. I think if we're seeking to change a decision that we've made, which was if the invoice goes through wellbeing teams, it has to have two facilitators, that it needs to then come as a proposal to governance.
And if the invoice doesn't go through wellbeing teams though, because I'm not talking about anything that's going through wellbeing teams. Well, I'm only talking about HSA.
So that's your call then.
Yeah.
But you did say, I picked that up because you said it was blurred.
It's blurred that I'm delivering some wellbeing teams elements in it, right. But it's definitely I'm invoicing as HSA.
Right.
Well, I'm not. I'm invoicing as me, licensed by HSA. That's a whole other kettle of fish. It's a whole other nightmare.
Well, so I think the question back to you is this a governance? Do different decisions need to be made around how we're operating the wellbeing teams part of our business? And do we all have clarity about what's the difference, what makes one and not the other, and what the difference is? Because you raising this makes me think that's not as clear as we may have thought it had been.
So what's your suggestion, Helen? Sorry,
Well, your need was to confess and to ask about something. I'm saying if it's an issue, so as secretary, if it's an issue about clarity of, if you're suggesting that we change something in wellbeing teams, that has to go to governments because it's a change in policy and how we work. If you're suggesting a change in the HSA side of the business, then my question is, where have we got recorded how we operate that and what the difference is? And I'm guessing that we don't have that recorded because you're bringing it here. So I'm wondering how we get clarity over what we all believe has been agreed, because that helps you know whether you should be apologising or not, or whether you should be asking for a change in how we operate one side of the business.
okay, thanks. I have got what I need now. Emily, HSA FB.
This is a quickie. So what I need is to tell you that I've noticed that the last time USA did the HSA Facebook group, they did compassionate communication, which is what we were going to do for our next topic. So my request is, please can we think about another topic in advance for our next group? So I'll be asking, I'll ask next time whether we can decide what that is. So I'd like you to please have some ideas between now and next tactical, giving you a fair warning.
Thank you. Did you get what you need?
Yeah, Ben, could you record for Michelle, you and I, to decide on a HSA Facebook topic for, I think it's May, or April 26th.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm skipping the next one because Helen covered it in videos. Ben, leave over Easter, what do you need?
Just to let you know that, I think I've already done it, but let you know the second week of Easter I'm on leave.
When is that, Ben?
That is not next week, the week after, I think.
5th of April that week.
5th, yeah, week beginning 5th.
Oh yeah, you're in my diary.
Oh, there we go.
So me to everyone. So Clenton, again, it's another confession. So this is a mess up one. So I'm still working on Clenton's examples slowly, and I feel a sense of shame. I'm feeling shame that I'm not moving quicker on it. And rather than somebody say, Michelle, how are you getting on? I'd rather be upfront and say it is up there on my priorities, but I've just not got as far as I wanted to, and I need to because it's going to be filmed. But I just needed to share that with you. A bit like a Friday mess up, but it's not. It's a fortnight of not being able to do something. I have what I need. Helen, walking with Ben.
I'm really sad, Ben, that you can't join us for the session in May, and the Northumberland one seems a long way off. So what I need is to see if we can coordinate a date where we meet halfway and walk with you like you and I did, and whether everybody could. So what I need is, Ben, could you let me have some dates that would work for you, and then I can see, I can coordinate it from them.
Yes, of course, that would be lovely. I shall send you those.
Thank you.
Did you get what you need? Avoiding children's birthdays, perhaps.
There's only one this year, so that's good.
Could be any of us.
Well, that's true.
Emily, next week, what do you need?
Well, it's been covered, but just to let you know, obviously next Friday is a bank holiday. I wouldn't be here, and then the following week I'm off, just to let you know I'm not at work. That's all I need to tell you.
Okay. Probation board and shame. So this links to the first one. This is me. And what I need is some tips on how to encourage people to share that they're off track, again, without that feeling like they're opened up to shame on the on track, off track. And it was Claire being on the Dare to Lead course that really helped her think about that, and then challenged me with it. And I think I gave her an answer, and then went away and thought, I haven't thought deeply enough about that. I want to go a bit deeper, because I do think that I've seen in the past people not being honest on the on track, off track board. And maybe it was linked to shame. Maybe it was linked to feeling like a failure. So yeah, so some ideas on how to present. I still think it's the right thing to do because of transparency, but it's how to share with people beyond what I already do, which is saying things like, this helps us all support one another. Asking for what you need is fundamental to self-management. So it's actually great that you are putting things on here. But what else could we say? Could we frame? Emily?
I'm just going to say, I think the terms on track and off track imply right and wrong. And if people think they're not doing something right, it can bring a sense of shame from a compassionate communication point of view. So there's kind of almost like a where are you up to, rather than you're on track good, you're off track bad. So I'm wondering if there's a different term we can use for those, or do we need a comparison? Does it need to be where are you up to, and almost like a timeline, and they show where they've got up to? Because or can we use, I'm just riffing here, noodling on language, but I think that it's the off, if somebody says I'm off track, oof, I don't know. Yeah, so that's my little piece.
I want to present a counter to that, because so if we go back to purpose, the purpose of the probation board is there are things you have to achieve by the end of probation. So I think it is you're on track for achieving these at the end of probation, or you're not on track. However, I would be curious to see what other language we could come up with, but I don't feel as strongly about it as you do, Emily, because it does have that. If we can't sign you off for doing this, we're at risk of as employers, or we're supporting Camden at risk. So I think in services, we've often been really lax in how we've used the probation, and we've not made it into a serious thing. And I think this gives the counter of this is really serious. I think it's absolutely critical for self-management, and for you to personally reflect on how you're doing. Mm-hmm. And if people can't do that, then I would have some concerns around people's enthusiasm or aptitude for self-manage. But the shame's a real thing, isn't it? So for me, it would be saying we use these terms because it's really serious. That if we can't sign you off at 3 months or at 6 months, that we've got some work to explain the consequences of not being able to sign you off at 6 months, and that part of self-management means that we leave the responsibility of that with you, and we expect you to raise tensions at the team meeting if you're not where you think you should be. And actually, so I wonder whether we put more things around it, like we ask buddies each week to have a conversation about how they're doing on probation, and that buddies support each other to be brave enough to be honest. But I think the shame is putting I'm on track, and the wellbeing leader goes, no, you're not by any stretch of imagination, given what I've seen. And of course they wouldn't do that publicly, but I would experience that as more shaming for me, having somebody contradict, having to hold a mirror up to say, I know you said you're on track, but I've noticed you've not raised attention or said anything, at tactical meetings for the last 3 weeks. And that's part of what we need to see. So I want to both say, yes, the shame stuff is real, but how do we make it not shaming to be honest? Because that's an expectation of self-management. Can we do more in the way that we frame it? And can we do more in the way we support buddies to do it? And can we name it in a way that doesn't diminish its importance, even if we want to go look at other ways of describing it? But I like the fact that we talk about people we support being on track, off track, way off track around their well-being, and to dilute it for team members doesn't sit comfortably either. But I do hear what you say from compassionate communication perspective, Emily.
Can I go? I don't know if it's allowed to go off process to build, just to add from that or ask a clarifying question. Do people know exactly where they should be after week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5? So they can say, yes, I've done everything I need for week 1, tick, or no, I haven't. I'm only on week 1 and it's now week 3.
Question for Ben.
They not specifically in week by week. So we could help them with that if that's something that we think would be useful for them to know. But they will know in regards to, well, they will know in regards to the mandatory training that they need to do and what needs to be completed within what time frame. And they'll know within the time frame that they need to have done their shadow shifts and been observed. And they'll know within the first 3 months what they need to complete in the second 3 months. So not week to week, but there is a timeline in there that they know what they need to be accountable for completing. And we would hope that the wellbeing leader would be checking in if they'd recognised what was missing. But we want, I think for me, it's about, purpose is really important, and accountability, and people being accountable for themselves, but feeling that that's a really positive thing and feeling psychologically safe to do so, and that they're not going to be judged, but actually celebrated for being honest about where they feel they're up to and accountable for that, and encouraging everybody to do. I think it's far more likely that we have everybody feeling they can do that if more people are able to do that, and that it's a really positive thing, because it's about understanding yourself, where you're at and what you need to do to get back on track if you feel that you're off track, and people celebrating that in the team, and appreciating that. So I think I think it's a really important part of, like Helen said, about the team developing their ability to self-organise, and seeing that as a really positive thing. And challenging and difficult, but it's a challenging and difficult thing to develop your ability to self-organise and self-manage. But that's a big part of it, I think. It's taking accountability.
Facilitator, can we go around again?
Yeah, but I'm going to have a say first. So for me, I'm looking more for frame. So how do we share this in a way that doesn't trigger shame? Absolutely agree about, if we've got an on-track, off-track board around people we support, it should be the same for us workers, because otherwise we start to go down that doing to route as well, not being as thoughtful about it. I think it's helpful to have some, by this point, we'd have expected you to have achieved these modules, and to have done some things that can be, negotiated, or you might swap something for something else. But I think it then becomes overwhelming if you've not done things, and then it becomes hard, to be honest. And I've definitely seen that when we were in Wigan. So it's more about the frame and the clarity around that is important to me. But I really like the idea of having some. So if you've got 12 e-learning modules to complete, how many would you have expected within the first month? I think it's really helpful.
We do have that. We've got that. That's really clear in the learning pack that they get from Camden, as well as in the guide for.
Right. Well, let's go around and do another round. I can't remember who started that round. You, Helen?
It was Emily.
Oh, Emily.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to be challenged about language. I think framing is really important, but I think if people are judging and evaluating their performance, then for me there would have to be kind of clarity about what that looks like, so it doesn't become such a self-judgment. Because I could say, oh, I'm well on track because I've done 2 out of my 12 modules. You could say I'm well off track because I've only done 4. So it's about ensuring that, but holding people safe within that, and modelling, as Ben says.
I've changed my view as a result of listening to Ben and Emily. I think it's only okay for us to talk about on track, off track, way off track if we're following Brené Brown's clear is kind, as well as paying attention to her thing about shame. And therefore, and I wonder whether we can have two ways of doing this. One is the absolutes that are set by the organisation. For example, you have to have completed X training by X, Y, and Z. But also, here are 10 things that you need to do that you decide what week you want to do them on. So if one week actually I feel overwhelmed by other stuff, I know that I can move that to the next week without falling behind. So is there a way of both having some stuff that's set in stone that has to be, and some stuff for co-creating your probation journey, as it were? Because what we really want, Michelle, is what you've modelled twice in this meeting is, I just need to tell you, I'm not on track around Clinton, and I want to let you know I'm aware of it. And that's the kind of behaviours that we want to see. But I think we need to change what we're doing in terms of clear is kind. So I think it's not just having a better frame, it's giving people better information and also seeing which bits they can co-create and juggle themselves, if depending on what's happening in their week.
Yeah, I think what we do have really clearly mapped is the practice side of things and the mandatory course stuff. But in terms of the self-organising stuff that we're expecting to see people be able to do, it's not that clear. So there's definitely something I think we could probably do around that, and think about how do we make sure people are, when they're deciding whether they're on track or off track, then they've got a clear idea of what it is that they're basing that decision on, in regards to the self-organising stuff, because we've got it mapped out, but not necessarily about what we're looking to see when during that period. So we could do, definitely, I could look at that.
I also wonder, because I like the idea of the buddy challenge and support there as well, because buddies know if their buddy's off track. And I wonder if it also in probation becomes one of the checks on the confirmation practices around being on track, off track. And then it's transparent, you've had a conversation with a supportive person around it, and that person supports you to make sure that you put your sticker on the right bit. So I really like that, because then it feels like it's held by your buddy as well.
Yeah.
And your buddy's going to say, you can't put on track there, you've not done any e-learning. What are you about?
Yeah.
Great. So can we record a decision there? Not a decision, sorry, an action. But I'm wondering if this is your action, Ben, in terms of lead for learning and development around tying up confirmation practices during probation, linking a question there to the on track, off track board. What else did we have there? Being really explicit about the frame and the purpose and the consequences. Have I missed anything there?
You're going to put something, have you got something in confirmation practices?
Yeah, I've already done that bit. It's already got that.
Yeah, so the other bit that I'm going to look at is the self-organising element, and think about, have we got that mapped as clearly as it could be?
Yeah. Because also what could happen there is that somebody says they're off track because they've not managed to get the wellbeing leader to observe them. Yeah. So things that feel out of their control as well. Good. Right, I have what I need. Emily, tactical confirmation practices.
Just to say, Helen, I don't know if I've got the updated ones for the poll. So
I'll resend them.
If you could resend them, that would be really helpful. Sorry if I've missed it.
No, I think they only went to me.
Oh, can you forward them to Emily then?
Yeah, and also I'm really in confession mode. I think you said, would you send them to Emily last week, but it wasn't written down and I didn't do it. So
Michelle, I wouldn't have done anything before this week anyway. So
I'm going to go away and do 10 Hail Marys anyway. So that's all of our tensions today. So let's finish with a closing round of appreciations. What have you most appreciated about our time together today? On my screen, I've got Emily, Ben, Helen, and then me.
I have really appreciated, Michelle, you being in confession mode, because I appreciate you're brave enough to say it, and that we can all hold you and know that that's okay. And it's good that you do that. It's a great model. Thank you.
I really appreciated the conversations about shame. I found that really, really useful. And also the probation conversation just there that really helped me think about how we can get, you know, a really good resources and be most helpful for people. And I appreciated Helen bringing up the walking with Ben tension as well. Really appreciate that.
I appreciate that we have got a level of our development where disagreeing with each other feels okay, and the ability to build on each other's ideas. So it was great for me to notice that I've changed my mind based on hearing things from Emily and Ben, and that it feels completely comfortable for us all to do that. So I appreciate the comfort that we have with each other that means that we can challenge and support.
I appreciate being able to discuss some kind of gnarly potential situations and thinking with you. So it's really good to be able to dig deep. Thank you.